What is up, ladies and gentle nerds, and welcome to the Daily Quest number 18 today. We are talking about Spellcaster Falstad. And the moment I open my mouth, the cat, she is just summoned. I'm going to scoop her up. She is so heavy, but she's just like, hey, I want my screen time. All right, jumping in. Falstad. Oh, why are your paws so wet? It's weird. Go away. Ugh. Okay, that's a thing. That's a thing. But guys, yeah, this is going to be our first ever Falstad Daily Quest. And last night we saw some really impressive Spellcaster Falstad play, and I want to actually just break it down because honestly, we haven't seen a lot of Falstad. He was very popular in the earlier metas of Heroes of the Storm. He worked really well in blow-up compositions with Tyrael. We saw that for a long time. And then we also saw a fair amount of Falstad play with the Wombo combos. When you get the Gravel Bomb, the Apocalypse, any kind of Wombo combo, you just put that Hinterland's Blast on top of it, and it's very good. Very rare to see Mighty Gust as it stands. And he used to have a different heroic, which I don't even remember the name of, but it's really cool that we're seeing different styles of Falstad. There's definitely a place for auto attack Falstad in some regard, but at the same time, Spellcaster is starting to see a bit more success, and it almost seems map dependent. Now, Falstad overall, he's got the mobility, right? He doesn't have a mount, but he does get the movement speed when he's out of battle, but he also has his fly ability to get from one lane to the other. So he has that global presence, which makes him stronger on the larger maps. Particularly, you think about Cursed Hollow getting to those tributes at that last moment. You can stick around and soak for a little while, and then fly down to the tribute to actually help contest it and fight with your team. Or something like Sky Temple, same kind of deal. You can actually sit at just one temple and then fly over when absolutely needed. But let's just talk about his talents a little bit before we get too far into that. So let us just pull that up. I think I set it up. Yes, excellent. So this is Falstad's kit. No, I don't want to hover on Chen. I want to hover on Falstad. And as we talked about his basic abilities, he's got the boomerang, which is just his Q, or it's the hammer. He's got the W, which is the shock. I don't even know the names of his abilities. He's got barrel roll. That's one of them. Yeah, he uses the E to dash forward, and he can pass through walls with that. That's a little bit of a pro tip. And you know what? Let's actually go into the game and pull all of that up just to show it, make it easier for everyone to follow along, especially if you are new to this hero. And bam, there he is. There's Falstad. So he's got the hammerang. That's the Q. You cast it out, it goes down, does damage, comes back, does damage on the way back. Lightning Rod, you apply it to a target, and you pretty much have to be within a specific radius. It'll show you a blue circle around Falstad that will signal that, hey, you are within range for these 4 charges or 4 seconds of this ability to be going off. That's the E. It is in fact called barrel roll. Yes, he can dash through walls with this. You get a little bit of a shield, but it's also an escape. You can use it to chase, but typically this is something that you use more for maneuverability to get out of the way of things. You see precision strike coming down, you just E on out of the way. You need to pass through a wall to get out of a terrible fight, you just E through that wall, and suddenly you're just well out of their reach. Hopefully. And of course his trait, that's Tailwind. When you're not taking damage, you gain movement speed. So that makes it like he has a mount. His Griffin gets a little bit faster when he's out of combat. And he does have the fly, which is about half the map top to bottom, right? So depending on the map, of course, because there's different sized maps, but if you're talking about Cursed Hollow, it's about a lane of travel distance, which is quite far on the Z, and he moves rather rapidly. For heroics, he's got Mighty Gust, and that's just a knockback. It's reduces their movement speed by 60% for 3 seconds, but it's really a disengage tool. You can try to set up cool things. We've seen crazy plays on ladder, like GIFs posted on Reddit, which is quite cool, but it's not really something. It doesn't do damage, right? And typically, if you're playing an assassin, you want to blow kids up. That's why we tend to see Hinterland Blast be the heroic, formerly known as Shock and Awe. If you're ever watching a broadcast and you hear someone say Shock and Awe, that's what they're talking about. It's Hinterland Blast, and it's a big, long range. It's not AoE. It's AoE in the sense that it's not like a radius. It's just a straight line AoE. So I guess it's a little bit different than the typical splash or cone style AoEs. But it's nice and refreshing to see, and it's a quite powerful ability. But that is the wrong button. Wrong button. Let's go back over to the talents. And today we're going to be looking at Spellcaster Falstad. So again, I mentioned auto attack Falstad. can be a thing. We've seen it done before, and that's when you would grab Seasoned Marksman. In the past, we would always see Falstad grabbing Bribe. We talk about the mobility that he has with Fly. This makes Bribe very appealing because you can actually fly aggressively forward across the map to, say, the bottom right giant. Say you're playing on the blue team, the red team on the right, they've got those bottom right giants. They're rather appealing. The Tribute's in the top of the lane. We can fly down there, bribe those giants, hearth home, and then make our way back on up to help with that Tribute. Interesting ideas to be able to do that, but Bribe has become really uncommon, and we now have Power Throw. They added this a few patches ago. It increases the range on the hammering by 40% and the slow duration by 25%. So that makes your hammer have ridiculous range. It doesn't necessarily travel all that quickly, but it still casts very far. You can interrupt Dragonites, whatever, any kind of trying to cap those Tributes, whatever it is. That's great utility, but it also does some pretty solid damage. So Power Throw tends to be the talent we'll see. Just looking at the other ones quickly, Updraft, you get increased range on the barrel roll. That's cool. Seasoned Marksman again if you're going auto attack. Conjurer's Pursuit, Falstad, I don't know if it's worth getting. You're getting mana retention, but he's really the kind of hero that you're going to auto attack a lot just when you're in the lane, and then once you see those opportunities, then you're going to cast all your spells on the enemy heroes. And man, that text on top of the screen, rip me. Let's get that fixed. All right, looking at level 4. Charged up, this can increase the lightning rod so that it hits 2 additional times. This again, this is the W. You have to make sure you're within range of the enemy hero that you do put this ability on. So it's kind of crucial to do that, and that's a little bit loud. And it's cool, it's good, but it's not necessarily like going to maximize the damage so much, because typically as Falstad, you're a little bit more in the back line. You're not necessarily going to be in their face a lot. This is phenomenal if you're chasing someone to finish off that kill, because it does do a ton of damage. And it's not a bad option, right? It's not a bad option, but I'll tell you what we're going to go with in this scenario. Float Rider, this reduces the cooldown. If you want to be like hyper mobility, you can spec into Updraft and Float Rider, and it's very fun, especially if you're just learning the hero and you want to kind of be worried more about not dying. It's definitely a decent option for that. We also have Vamp Assault. If you're playing on Quick Match and you don't have any support on your team whatsoever, you're probably going to want to grab Vampiric Assault. If you just have no healing and you're sick of having to go back to base, Falstad's health pool is quite small. So Vampiric Assault will be quite nice in those kind of situations, and that's the only time I find myself grabbing this. But if I even have a Tyrande, I'm typically not going to grab this ability, and I will end up going with Gathering Power. Now, Gathering Power, it is a global talent, generic talent, if you will. And you passively get 5% ability power, but this also gives you a bonus of 2% up to the maximum of 15% for every kill you get. So getting kills, you hold these stacks, but if you die, you lose the stack. So this is all about staying alive, playing safe. This rewards essentially good play, getting kills and not dying. So Gathering Power, very strong. Moving to level 7. Battle Momentum, it's great, but the only time I could ever see Battle Momentum working out is if you were going like a really spam W build. Now, this is something that hasn't been experimented a lot. This is strictly theory crafting. We're going to be very quick. Conjurer's Pursuit to retain your mana as much as possible, because Battle Momentum means you're casting more spells. The W, to be able to cast that W very frequently, it's a fairly long cooldown. I mean, looking in-game, it's actually 15-second cooldown. So Battle Momentum lets you cast it more frequently. This gives you more stacks, and this helps you retain your mana. That's the only time we would ever use these 3 abilities, in my opinion. We have never seen this done in competitive to this date and time. Cool thing to think about, not what we're doing today. We will actually be grabbing Boomerang. Now, secret weapon, this deals 80% bonus damage while the hammering is in flight. So your basic attacks, this is auto attack Falstad. You throw that hammer out, it stays out for a while, and while it's out, your auto attacks hit for almost twice the damage. Quite cool, but today we're doing Spellcaster, which means Boomerang, which is when you hit Q again to reactivate the hammer while it is out, dealing additional damage in an AoE splash fashion. So you throw this out into a wave of minions, you hit that Q, it's going to blow up and hit all of them, dealing additional damage. It's quite fun. Free roll, barrel roll, costs no mana. Woo! Never get this. And First Aid, again, if you don't have a support and you didn't go for Vampiric Assault, First Aid's not a terrible option. It's a good ability, and pretty much anyone that can grab it. Now, level 10, disregard Mighty Gust in its entirety. unless you're doing something fun with your friends, some kind of cheeky Emerald Wind, Mighty Gust, I don't even know, composition. There's some fun stuff that could be done with it for sure, but if you're playing to win, you're going to grab Hinterland's Blast because this ability just hits so very hard. The massive range it has, the massive damage output it has, it's just very good. 13. If you're going auto attack, this is when Giant Killer starts to get really appealing. Basic attacks deal bonus damage based on their health pool. If you see the enemy team has multiple warriors that have high health pools, or Asmodee and Diablo alone, that warrants Giant Killer, and it warrants trying out an auto attack build. And again, that's just kind of grabbing stuff like Seasoned. You grab the secret weapon, and then you would end up grabbing Giant Killer. But we are going for full-on Spellcaster, which means Crippling Hammer is what we want. That increases the movement speed slow of hammering by 50%. So when it hits those targets, not only does the duration lasts longer from the level 1 talent we grabbed on Power Throw, but it slows them by an additional 50%. Quite cool. And if you were going for a W build, you would definitely be grabbing one of these. The Shield just for sustainability, or Thunder Strikes more likely for the bonus damage. So we're just going to make sure we have that. And looking at 16, Airy Gust, that's flexibility, cool, mobility, hammer time. You basic attacks against slowed targets from the hammer rank will stun them for 0.75 seconds. This is actually a really interesting talent, right? This makes it so that every time you hit them after throwing the hammer out, which now has additional slow and a longer slow, will stun them. It seems like you would definitely want to get this. Now, there's situations where you might want to. Say they have an Illidan, and that Illidan is being a big problem for your team. This could be the answer, because, man, stunning that frequently, I imagine if you had an Abathur hat and you're just constantly attacking with a really fast attack pace, if he goes with the talent for additional attack speed. Scary stuff. Afterburner, this gives you additional movement speed after you use your E, and Overdrive. Overdrive, that is what we're talking about. This is an additional 25% ability power for 5 seconds on all of your abilities. This includes your heroic. So this is actually like too hard to pass up. When you talk about an additional 25% ability power on not only the Q, the W, and the heroic Hinterland Blast, it hurts so good. Oh my goodness. I mean, the Hinterland Blast can just tear through kids, and we're going to see in the replays we watch how powerful it actually is. And speaking of Hinterland Blast, we will end up grabbing Call of the Wild Hammer for the Spellcaster build. Once more, if you're going Mighty Gust, whatever, grab Wind Tunnel. It's super fun. If you're going auto attack, that's when you're going to grab Nexus Frenzy if you're doing that build. And there are many situations, it's hard to say exactly when you want to get Epic Mount, but it is a very good, unique talent that only Falstad has. It's actually one of the coolest level 20 unique talents in the game, in my opinion, because it just makes his flight so very quick, reduces that cooldown, and Falstad is just all over the place at that point in time. But that is Falstad, and we are now going to prep a replay. And someone asked, Dallas asked in the chat, what is TDQ? It is the daily quest. It's an educational Heroes of the Storm series geared towards newer players, but also good for the veterans because we go into professional matches generally. Not always pro matches. Sometimes we do viewer submitted, but lately it's been pro matches to analyze games, talk about a hero that might not be as popular or might be a little bit out of the ordinary, or even if it is completely in the meta, why it's working, why it's impactful, and what we can expect to see moving forward. So let's load up the replay. We're going to go into the first game that we saw last night with Falstad. Now Trummel will be playing him. I believe the map is Sky Temple, and we're going to load it up right now. You got the super sweet loading status right happening. Gonna have a sip of my iced coffee. And we have no sounds. Oh, so loud. Oh, no, it actually might be fine. Alright, so I learned a new trick today, guys, and I'm super excited about this. There's actually, since we did the camera slaving last night, where we actually have one observer, and then the other observer slaves to it, I can actually slave to the exact observer that we used last night, right? Does this break it if I zoom in? It does. So I can actually let it just autopilot. Look, no hands. You see it moving? You see it moving? No hands. Oh, so fancy. So for the start of the game, we're going to do that just to talk about all of the talents in this match and talk about the matchup. So Oh my goodness, apparently, if I even jiggle my mouse to the corner, it's going to rip it with mouse scroll turned off. Let us try that again. Ugh. Yes. Alright, so while Kubicam is active, I am going to talk about these talents. Now, we do see Power Throw. We talked about that in the discussion about the talents. That is what Falstad is opting for. The rest of his team, he's got an ETC, he's got an Uther, Tyrande, and Jaina. And the first thing to consider in all of this is the fact that there's a Jaina and a Tyrande. Hunter's Mark, that's 25% additional damage received by that person, and Jaina is also a very bursty hero. If they are in sync, if they try to eliminate a target at once, the amount of burst potential they have can just tear through a tank. But look at the side of Tempo Storm. They don't have a tank. They're actually running with Illidan as their primary tank with triple support. Brightwing, Rhaegar, Tassadar. There's a lot of shielding power. There's Polymorph there to help provide, you know, some of that lockdown, some of that safety for the Illidan, which will be their frontliner, and then they have Vala in the backline. Very interesting composition by Tempo Storm. Very cool to see this very Spellcaster burst-heavy style out of Complexity. And again, this was in the ESL Major League. If you guys missed the VODs, you can check out twitch.tv/ESL_heroes. But we're going to continue forward, and let's actually take control of the camera for now, and let's just watch Falstad. So right now, he's just sitting on this top tower. We talked about his global mobility. He is alone in the top of the map while there is a big fight happening here in the middle. All the members here, Tassadar now finally contesting, but he's still gotten a few. I mean, he's gotten almost half of the charges by himself, and he's perfectly safe to do that because he's just going to tap the well. If he decides that he's actually necessary, if his team calls for him to fly down, he'll fly around here to a safe location where he can assist his team. Thing to point out, never, 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 unless you know the enemy team has like one hero that's just about dead, fly into the fight. And yes, he flew into a pretty safe spot up in the top left, coming in to help his team rotate back with the rest of his team, and you saw that Lunar Flare hit. The wave came crashing down from Jaina. Didn't necessarily time everything up together, but it's still quite good. Double healing ward goes down. That doesn't stack, but still provides a massive radius in which Tempo Storm can sit back and heal up in. And that's kind of the cue for Complexity to back out. You see that there's 2 healing wards, you see that you actually can't get through that, and they have triple supports. Just back up, tap the well, and they're reinitiating. The second that Tempo Storm split up, they thought they were safe. Complexity comes back in, they find Brightwing out of place, and they blow him up. Really nicely done. But they do manage to get the final charges, so all things considered, they only got a few charges, took out 1 tower in the middle, but they did get this whole first half, and they are now, Complexity once again is set up to try to contest this. Now, if we just pause it very quickly and take a look across the map, KO is in the bottom right now. Completely uncontested, soaking experience for Tempo Storm. This is actually quite nice. In the middle, Caterpillar trying to soak. He might be on his way up to help out in the top, and it looks like he is. So this means that Tempo Storm is currently out soaking Complexity since Vala isn't there. But will it pay off? If they lose this team fight, it probably won't. We see all those shields going off the Glaurung to keep him alive, but is it enough? No! Just the burst potential of Falstad and Jaina able to blow him up. And Falstad's build, so far, he did pick up Gathering Power. So this is the time when we start to look at it. They have 3 kills. Falstad has had Gathering Power for 2 of those kills, which means he has 2 stacks of Gathering Power. This gives him additional ability power. Additional ability power makes all of his spells deal more damage. And essentially, as long as Falstad doesn't die, this is going to continue to get stronger up to 5 throughout the game, and he's just gonna, just hit harder in general. But things are going to be kind of stale for the moment, most likely, so we're just going to slightly speed things up, put it in like 1.5 speed. And the teams are just kind of rotating around the map, grabbing mercenary camps. We can see the Giants picked up here, Giants picked up here, general map control. We got the wing things in the top lane fighting each other, Brightwing and Falstad. And Rhaegar gets picked off, but that's all irrelevant to Falstad discussion. So we're just going to keep watching him. People duking around the map. Falstad's doing exactly what he should be doing and making sure he soaks. On a map like Sky Temple, it typically isn't crucial to be roaming and ganking because of the size of the map, right? It's such a large map. You want to be sure that you're actually just making sure you maximize your experience in getting to level 10 first, especially when you consider the second temple will spawn around that time. So Complexity considers trying to steal these bruisers. They do, in fact, fail in doing so. Tempo Storm holds their own bruisers, defending them, and this is likely the time when we could see Complexity trying to take bruisers of their own. A lot of the times teams like to try to time this around the second temple spawn, and the second temple will always spawn 2 minutes after the first temples complete their charges. So once they're out of ammo, once they've fired off everything, 2-minute timer begins, and then the temples will come up. And then we see 10 seconds from now, those temples will spawn. The timing on these bruisers is impeccable. They're going to just eliminate this last one, and then with that, they will march down the top lane while all the focus is going to be on this bottom temple. But its complexity is going to be a little bit late as a result. And Falstad, Brightwing, they're the two that have that, good amount of mobility. Phase shift for Brightwing, the fly for Falstad. They will, if they decide they want to commit on either side, that's when we'll see them fly down or phase shift down to the bottom of the map to assist with that. But considering KO is up here, it doesn't look like Tempo Storm is actually all that worried. Oh, there's the phase shift going for Brightwing, so she has entered the bottom part of the map. Falstad still thinking about it. Falstad, though, doesn't want to allow KO to soak on his own. KO will actually just sit in this top lane, soaking as long as possible. He just makes sure to get rid of that last wave, flying down to the bottom of the map. But he flew down into a location where he says, you know what, we have this under wraps right now. I'll just soak the middle lane. With that awkward zoom, we go in, and we can see he's just going to throw that hammering out. Try to soak this middle lane. And let's pause and get a quick update on what's going on with all the talents. So for Falstad, it's exactly what we talked about. Full spell power. But what does Falstad have to worry about? Falstad is a hero that can be blown up very quickly. Falstad does kind of suffer with mobility to some extent. I just realized I can pull this up, make it look so much nicer on the left. Oh, yes. And he doesn't want to get stunned out. He doesn't want to die because he wants to make sure he maximizes those gathering power stacks. He still only has this 2 because there hasn't been any other kills that he was part of. But the nice thing about this is the only thing he really has to worry about in terms of stuns is Polymorph. I mean, their composition, there's not even a Rain of Vengeance. Now, yes, Illidan can most certainly chase him down. He's very quick, and Falstad only has the E to get away. But all things considered, they have the stun from Uther, the stun from Tyrande, the slows from Jaina, and an ETC to all help peel for him. And he's going to be pretty well taken care of and pretty hard for Illidan to lock down. So, let us resume. We can see the bottom temples. They went pretty evenly. I mean, if we just look at the structural damage done. Actually, no. Likely in favor of Tempo Storm. But still not too shabby for Complexity. And they're trying to set up a party bush. Falstad, of course, always has that capability to fly in. But he is slowly making his way down. Now we have this far sight of Rhaegar, just revealing where anyone could be. Blinks is happy to walk through, but this just allows Tempo Storm to realize that, hey look, they're not trying to take the boss. Let's get some aggression on. This is when we see Falstad flying up to help defend this top fort. The Sentinel from Tyrande coming from across the map just to apply a small amount of damage to Arthalon. But this is actually a situation where Falstad needs assistance. There's no way he can defend versus 3 members like this on his bird. And as nice as Falstad is in terms of dishing out damage, he doesn't want to overcommit. If he oversteps his bounds against any of this, they will be happy to chase across this. They could easily use Ancestral Healing. It's only a 1-minute cooldown. It's almost always off cooldown. And Trummel just going to back on up, use that E to get behind his keep walls, Hearthing home to heal on up, and he will make his way back out. But during all of this, we actually see that we have this push coming out at the bottom, and they managed to take a really nice kill. Caterpillar just with the nice plays, using Mosh Pit to pick up a kill. Phoenix Sniper, of course he's on his bird. He's always on his bird. Now, chat aside, moving on, we can actually just look at Falstad's damage. Let's actually pull that up. He's currently sitting. He's doing all right, right? He's just 5 damage behind. I can't math. 4 damage behind Jaina. Pretty darn close. But considering that Falstad is keeping up with Jaina, just kind of shows. I mean, a lot of people consider Jaina to be the best assassin in the game in the current meta, just because of her sheer DPS. But this Spellcaster Falstad has no problem keeping up, and with gathering power, he just gets stronger and stronger throughout the game. Temples have spawned, bottom and center. Let's fast forward just a wee bit to get into the action. We'll follow Falstad on his journey to clear out this middle lane. He's not going to get soaked in that 1 minion. Shame on him. And he says, you know what? The rest of the map, the rest of the players in this game are all fighting on the bottom part of the map, I will gladly just trade out for this top temple. This will destroy the fort very quickly, and Complexity just says, you know what, alright, let's cut our losses, rotate up to the middle of the map, soak the experience there, and make our way through. Tempo did the same exact thing. They left Brightwing, that global presence hero, at the bottom, who now phase shifts into battle when the opportunity arises, and they don't actually get a kill. Nice play with that Emerald Wind. Looked really good, but they didn't manage to pick a kill. Falstad, though, is still sitting on that top temple. Almost died from all of that, but he's still safe to hearth home because he knows all of those members were still in the middle of the map. Here he is at full health. Fly is now off cooldown, and he can fly into battle when he sees fit. But this bottom, there's still a few shots left on this bottom temple because Brightwing did, in fact, leave her post here from soaking that bottom temple. Alright. Moving forward, the sick fights, the sick plays will happen, I promise you. It's just a lot of just posturing, a lot of just controlling these temples in this first game of the 2 replays that we are going to be checking out today. And Trumbull just going forward, hitting that W, you can see that red radius around him. That's the area in which you have to keep the enemy that you target to ensure that it will get off all of the charges. And Tempo's starting to put some aggression on this bottom lane. They're posturing to just kind of show their hand. They want to force the positioning on Complexity right now, but Falstad continuing to be obnoxious across the map. He has that mobility. He can fly down. He can hearth home if he absolutely needs to, and he's continuing to soak. This soak that he's getting, this like split push style that he's doing, is allowing him to get Tempestorm a little bit ahead, and they do hit 16 first. Flies to a safe location back in their own base, and they're bullying them back, taking out these scouting drones one at a time. Brightwing just only lay 2 of them down. Both of them have just been destroyed, so they know they've removed that vision. But as they push out, Tempestorm went to the top of the map, and they realize this very quickly. They see 4 members there, or 3 members there. They're happy to just scoop up this boss very quickly. Now, Tempestorm decides to turn around, but that was a big misplay on their part for actually giving up that positioning. I don't know if they expected all 5 members of Complexity to just run straight to the middle of the map and grab that boss, but they had those scouting drones. They had vision of where Complexity was going, and, well, now they have to deal with this boss, and as a result, this boss still has a fair amount of health. They do as much as they can. They're just going to leave Dreadnought with a global mobility in that spot, and they're going to rotate up, trying to fight over these temples, but Falstad once more by himself here in the top part of the map. He doesn't even have interest in fighting these things. Okay, maybe he does. But all 5 members are here. Falstad is going to have to fly down, and he flies down right behind the rest of his team. He's going to look for some big plays, right? So we have to talk about a few things before this fight actually unfolds. He now has Overdrive. They have hit level 16. Overdrive is that ability that amplifies all of the damage that it can dish out. That's 25% additional ability power, but the mana cost goes up on your abilities for those 5 seconds. Well worth it. Just running through the level 13 talent that we did not talk about, Crippling Hammer, that increases the movement speed slow of the hammering by 50%. So if you're hit with the hammering, you're slowed by a large amount for a fair amount of time, and it does a large amount of damage, considering he not only does he have gathering power, he's currently sitting on 2 stacks still. He doesn't have any more kills, so he's been on those 2 stacks for pretty much the whole game at this point. And he has Hinterland Blast, so we're going to see what he can do with that. Alright, Falstad, you can just see his positioning in the back. He's just patiently waiting, allowing Jaina to maybe lay out some big combos, dish out as much damage as possible. Once he sees weakness, once he sees them clumped up, that's when he's going to queue up his abilities. You'll see an icon over his head, and there we have a big Emerald Wind pushing them back, displacing the whole fight. Blink is falling back, but there he goes with that Hinterland Blast. Didn't get a kill, but it still applied a fair amount of damage. Now look how low they are. Tempo managing to take a good fight. This time, it's not going to work out. If Trumbull dies, he will lose his gathering power stacks. Tiger JK trying to survive. He goes into the bush and he just flies up. So both ETC and Falstad managed to survive what looked like a horrible situation for them, and he'll be hearthing home. The big thing about him surviving in that fight is the fact that he retained those stacks. Complexity is now very much on the back foot. That was a very clean fight. Emerald Wind pretty much straight up won because of how much displacement, how much time it bought for where Complexity was doing nothing. I don't know if it hit 3 or 4 targets, but honestly, quite a big play. We're just going to fast forward to get ready for that next fight, because Complexity, they need to make something happen at this point in time. And Tempo Storm, they grab some bruises. Complexity team getting aggressive in their jungle, stealing some of that, and they can see that happening. Oh my goodness. Actually, just look at that. We talk about flying into battle, and which could be really risky. I just want to make sure we capture this. So Falstad, he is actually going to opt to fly across the map, and we can see his location just below. Now, a lot of Falstads, especially from Quick Match, would fly right up to the Knights, because you know that's what you want to do. But he said, hey, they might be at the Knights. I can't risk that. Let me just fly just below the Knights. And that is why he didn't get blown up there. Just really smart, safe, conservative play. And that's something I can't stress enough about being a Falstad player, is you have to be pretty safe and just wait for those key opportunities to cast your Hinterland's Blast. You should never cast the Hinterland's Blast at the start of the fight, because they're just going to heal through it. It doesn't have that same kind of effect of being like burst damage on everyone. You want it to be like burst damage that you then follow up on it, or burst damage that ends up securing kills. Oh, a nice Lunar Flare going out from Tyrande. So we're just going to slowly fast forward as Tempo Storm does, in fact, retreat from the situation. We can zoom way out. Tributes, or the shrines, are in fact spawning. Just one this time, top of the map. Brightwing continued to be obnoxious with their Global Soak, and Falstad just looking for potential pickups onto that Tyrande. But as that shrine will be up in 10 seconds, we can expect the teams to get ready to prep for that. The posture is happening, and it looks like Complexity is opting to ignore that shrine and go for a push in the bottom lane. They're actually looking at Brightwing. Brightwing all by her lonesome in this bottom lane with a nice polymorph. Will she be able to get out? Oh, the Emerald Wind Cleanse goes off just to make sure she's safe. And this was actually an attempt for two things. The idea for Tempo Storm was to go down, kill Brightwing, and then take the boss. They'll say, hey, look, we have a hero advantage, we removed their support, then we can take a boss. Not at all what ended up happening. Instead, Brightwing got away. Tempo Storm hit 20. They're actually 21, 2 levels ahead, and Complexity is very much on the back foot. It's just a lot of posturing right now. We're just sitting in that fast forward mode, trying to see what they can pull out. And Tempo looks like they're going to go for this boss. And at this point, I know exactly what happens, because I did cast this game last night. This is when Complexity is going to scoop in to see what they can do for this. Now, they're quite far behind. They don't have 20 just yet, which is rough. But Tempo Storm does succeed in grabbing that boss. A nice dance going out from Complexity. The Metamorphs is going to the backline, and they are just chasing down Tempo Storm. They killed Brightwing rather nicely. Actually, I think I missed the... I shouldn't have had that fast forward. I'm a horrible host at this kind of stuff. Been a month, boys. All right, so just looking back at it, that's the Hinterland Blast we're talking about. It does a fair amount of damage. Brightwing was already dead. They don't really have the same kind of sustainability they had, you know, with Brightwing, but they do still have Rhaegar and Tassadar to try to mitigate this. We see KO using Bolt of the Storm to try to back out of this, but they're continuing to chase. And even though Hinterland Blast has been used, Falstad still has quite a bit of burst damage. Not even needed. They pick up 2 kills. They're going to continue to push forward with this kind of momentum. And I said that Tempo Storm got the boss. I lied to you. Complexity totally stole that boss, and they're pushing with it because that was ETC dashing forward onto that point, dancing, and yeah, I mean, it's just such a powerful play to do stuff like this. The throw pit is what it's called for a reason, and Complexity has all the momentum moving forward. They're gonna try to end this game. We'll see if they're able to do it, but man, that core will fall quickly with the boss flailing away. It's a 3v5. Make that a 2v5 as they do blow up Illidan with quite ease, and this core is gonna end up falling. Boom, bam, boom. That was our first Falstad game. But it's now time. That was your warm-up, right? That was your introductory to Falstad. That was just kind of posturing. That was presence across the map, showing that global mobility that he has for sitting on the temples, making sure they stay ahead and soak. And even though they were ahead for most of the game, Tempo Storm took 2 very clean fights towards the end and had a huge advantage, right? Honestly, if Tempo didn't pick up that boss, they probably would have won the game. They had a nice lead. They were winning every team fight that they took, and it was looking quite good. But the Falstad play, I mean, just being across the map, having that kind of presence, keeping complexity up, really did help them out throughout the game, and Hinterland Blast is a formidable ability. We talk about that paired with Overdrive. It hits oh so very hard, but now we're going to highlight the play even further on Cursed Hollow. And this, in my opinion, is the best map for Falstad, period. Now, let me catch up on the chat quickly. I know I saw a few, before we hop into the next game, I saw a few questions. Just scrolling up, the guy's talking about Kel'Thas. Yes, he's going to be very exciting. Rip Cast aside, yeah, birds are great. I thought there, oh, does Jake use OBS to record? I use XSplit. All right, I think that was mostly the chat that we had to catch up on. Very good, great, grand. We're gonna load up this game on Cursed Hollow. Once again, Trummel, same teams. This game happened actually directly after the one we just observed, and we're gonna go into that. Oh, yes. So we're just gonna put it on autopilot for a little bit. Just kind of let it do its thing. We got arrows going out. The game's starting up. Gonna have a sip of the coffee once more. Delicious. And compositions, of course, will change. Game to game, you're not stuck with the same exact team, right? You draft for that map. Now, the map is Cursed Hollow. Tempo Storm opted to go for a really cool strategy with Abathur. And we can see both teams just having a lot of pressure in this bottom lane. The game looks so silly at this speed. It just absolutely looks ridiculous. But Falstad will be going for the same exact Spellcaster style build that we saw in the previous game. I mean, opting for that level 1 talent power throw, and he also has Ethereal. This is very much like the older Falstad style that we used to see. Back in the day, we would see Judgment on Ethereal paired with Hinterland's Blast on Falstad. This allows you to guarantee that target will be locked down in a specific location. Now, there's some cool things with this. You can guarantee that lockdown, follow it up with Hunter's Mark and Lunar Flare for even longer duration of that stun, and of course more damage. But no matter how you look at it, it's a guaranteed Hinterland Blast. And Hinterland Blast can hurt very much. But we're going to see, of course though, you have to think about it. When you use Hinterland Blast, you want to make sure you hit more than one target. It is an area of effect ability, and you want to just make sure that you can hit as many targets as humanly possible. It's kind of crucial. The first tribute is spawning, will slow things down. And just looking at the map, we can see that we do have the Vikings, Brightwing, and Abathur all soaking bottom. Vikings also soaking mid. That's the power of the Lost Vikings, just having that global soak. And that means Falstad doesn't have to really do that this game. We saw him doing that with great success in the past game. But since you have Vikings helping out so much, soaking 2 lanes at once all the time, they can even soak 3 if they need to. Falstad's kind of freed up from those duties and can be a little bit more aggressive in his team fighting duties and fighting over these tribunes. And we do have Brightwing finally deciding to blink up. The Lunar Flare not quite going to be enough, and Blinks just gets body blocked by Glaurung with that Shadow Charge, flipping him in. And nicely done, picking up an early kill. But Falstad, he just tapped the well. He's got a nice health pool, and he wants to throw out some spells. This is so weird, just letting the observer remember the exact observing from last night and just kind of let it do its thing. It's quite amusing to me. Alright, so currently we're looking in the middle lane, but let's kind of break the observer. Go look at Falstad for a little bit. It's going to be a lot less smooth back with the Jake cam on, and Falstad's just being a bird, flapping his wings, looking in the bushes. He's going to find this. He's going to kill it. He says, no, get rid of that. It's actually quite confusing. He's red. He looks like he belongs on the red team. Nope, he's on the blue team. That's why you got the blue circle underneath him. Moving forward and just knocking this stuff out. Let's just fast forward a bit. Once more, Olaf, that's just one Viking down. And the next tribute is once again spawning. Actually, the last one was here. This one's right next door. Slightly in favor of the blue team, as it is not in the center of the map. Constantly has that cautious positioning. Gathering power, he has 0 stacks as they currently have 0 kills. So he doesn't really get the same kind of bonus. He just gets the default 5% ability power. Cattle will be happy to grab that tribute, pick up the globe, and leave. And we're just going to continue moving forward until we get to the juicy team fights later in this game. I mean, the whole game, Falstad right now is just kind of soaking. He doesn't have to worry about that global soak, like I mentioned. He doesn't have to split soak, split push, anything. He's just playing safe. He never really pushes more than this halfway point in the map because he knows he could be blown up. And now that he knows his team is coming up, that's when he decides to move in. They managed to pick up a kill on Brightwing. Nicely done. But when he's alone, he is staying towards the backline. Level 10 has been hit. The tributes are 2-1 in favor of the red team, Tempo Storm. And they each just decide to trade out a fort. One fort down, picked up by Tempo Storm. One fort down, picked up by Complexity. Trumbull's going to go back home to fill up that mana pool, and then he will likely just fly back on up to this tribute where he will start working on that. Let's slow things down, getting a little bit dizzy with that max speed. And yes, guys, this is in fact replays from last night. Trumbull is happy to just sit here and channel. As they move forward, he will just start it again. There's no reason for him not to do it because he knows he's in a relatively safe position to do so. So he just steps forward, channel, back up. Now, if he thinks he's in risk of a shadow charge, that's when you're going to see him get a little bit more defensive. But Glaurung is trying to find someone that's going to overstep their bounds, but no, they're just respecting it. They know the threat of the Lunar Flare, the stun from Uther. If one person goes in, they are going to get blown up rather quickly because of that power the enemy team has. So Tempo just respected the position that Complexity had on the blue team, and they did not give it up, as that tribute wasn't crucial, right? It's just going to put it at 2-2. It's not actually going to grant them a curse, so there's no dire situation in which you actually just absolutely have to stop them. Whoa. This quote. I'm stopping the broadcast. The daily quest is a sort of educational. Calamity Charlie, how do you call this sort of educational? It's supposed to be hyper-educational. How dare you fire those shots at me? I am insulted. Moving on. We have Falstad flapping his wings, being a bird. The Lost Vikings are pushing, or not pushing, but soaking this bottom lane, defending it, making sure the push doesn't get out of control because, oh, I guess Brightwing died, because, actually we have to talk about that Brightwing play, I remember it. But basically, we're talking about these Locusts. They can push. Soldier is actually just constantly pushing this bottom lane, and it's a big story right now because of the constant push that's happening. You can see how far back this is, and McIntyre actually has to invest a lot of time making sure they don't actually take any structural damage. Now, we can see the health bars aren't up quite yet. That means that there's been no structural damage taken. But this is the power of Abathur. A lot of people complain that Abathurs don't necessarily have a big impact on a game, but you can already see, like, he's just constantly got Locust marching down this lane. He moves forward. He's not afraid of being out on the map. Right now he's right on the wall, but he's not afraid of coming out on the map, going forward very quickly, or very actively, and doing so. But let's just go back 10 seconds to get ready to check out this cool play, and it's one cool thing that Falstad can do. So let's watch his positioning very carefully right now. Trumbull is actually, he knows Brightwing is here. He is well aware, and he's got two allies. Watch this. Toronto's going around the corner. The Judgment goes out. Falstad dives through that wall, and they just pick him up. And that's the power of the E. Not a lot of heroes could pass through walls like that. But that's one thing that Falstad has. He's got the mobility. He's got the utility. He's got it all. He's got damage. So very cool to see those kind of plays happening because they just saw an opportunity. Toronto doesn't have a lot of get away to begin with until she has sprint, and Judgment was more than enough to secure that kill. Falstad does opt to fly down here as the 5th tribute is spawning. Brightwing just now respawning can phase shift into battle and will do just that onto Arthalon, so it is a 5v5 situation. And yeah, Diablo moving pretty far forward right now. They threw the Hunter's Mark down already, but the Hinterland Blast does connect with 2 members, dishing a lot of damage. Now that brings Diablo very low. Sets him up to finalize that kill. Uther does in fact fall, but he's still in ghost form. They picked up 2 kills. Diablo still has souls. It's a 2-for-1 at the end of the day, but it grants a curse to Complexity. Hinterland Blast, even without overdrive, hits very hard. 13 has just been hit. Crippling Hammer now provides utility. That additional slow that you're going to get on the Q of Falstad is, we talk about, you know, getaways. Jaina doesn't really have a lot of mobility to get out of situations. Brightwing, yeah, she can use Pixie Dust, but now she even had to get Sprint because of that gank that just happened on her. So she has to be quite careful in those situations too. And Complexity is now opting to go for this boss. Crumble once again using that mobility to pass through the wall. He'll just tuck himself away in the corner, chip away at this boss, and when this is all said and done, he will just hearth back home, refill that mana pool, and get ready for battle. Oh, no fear, no fear. He believed. He doesn't even care about mana. Oh, he does. He does. He wanted the globe first. It's about that globe value. You gotta have that green thumb. Pick up as many globes as possible, guys. And Falstad, being a bird, gonna flap his wings and fly across the map once more. And that's just about half the length of the map, right? That's the max distance you can fly. That's pretty far. That's pretty convenient travel time. And Tempo Storm is now being pressed by this boss in the bottom lane. That gives Complexity complete map control and the ability to go up here and just safely take this boss because they know Tempo has been busy. But Tempo decides they say, hey, let's go up there and try to contest them. But I love this play by McIntyre. He throws Olaf in there just as a distraction to buy a bit of time with Olaf, and Olaf lives. He just pops into that Viking longboat. It's doing a ton of damage. The Hinterland Blast coming in, hitting Dreadnought and KO with that Starfall and the longbow. Everyone is getting quite low, but not quite low enough. And they actually managed to pick up a kill on Tyrael. That Lightning Breath from Diablo, just no fear in the front line. Oh my goodness, Lunar Flare almost enough. Does Tiger JK have the Owl? Oh, not enough, because Spell Shield. Pretty sure it's the only reason that he lived in that situation, which is quite cool. So Glaurung will be fine going back home. We have the Vikings working up here with Blinks on this, and Falstad in the front has no fear, wants to start working on this middle fort. Let's look at the numbers very quickly. Falstad is happily at the top of the charts for his team, sitting at 15,000 damage, 71,000 of that siege damage, just behind Jaina. I mean, this Spellcaster build is a very convincing style. Let's go to Kubi Camp for a moment while we talk about all this stuff. It's the same exact build we saw in the last game, the same exact build we talked about in the introduction to Falstad at the start of this video. I talked about all the other styles you can do with auto attack, maybe a W build, maybe a hyper evasive Falstad that's all over the place, but I have to say I'm really convinced that this is the way to play Falstad right now because of how much success we're seeing, and with level 16 being picked up, we are going to see Overdrive. He's thinking about it, but no, he's going to grab Overdrive. There it is. Overdrive has been picked up, and Falstad flying into battle, getting ready to support his team for a potential fight that could happen. The tributes shouldn't be too far off, and currently Tempo Storm, they only need one for that next terrace. But they're going to be happy to just push forward, wail away on this fort, and then back on up, make their way to this bottom tribute, and they're well in position for this. This is going to be really tough for Tempo Storm to try to contest, considering that it's already gone. And yeah, they're just going to back that up, so it's currently 4-2 in terms of tributes in favor of Complexity, which is quite nice. And Trumwell just going to continue being a bird, passing through walls, throwing things, bird life, bird life, bird life. Do all birds have lightning powers? No, thankfully they do not. That is good for all of us. But we do have Tempo Storm rotating up, trying to get a kill. Now we are in a fast forward right now. I like this attempt by Dreadnought to try to get the polymorph a little bit late. If it had been a moment sooner, he actually could have stopped Caterpillar from using Alternance Might, and maybe they could have lined up a combo, picking up even Tyrael. I mean, yeah, he's a tank, but he's not invincible. But look at this. This is a big part of the story in this game, is just the constant annoyance of Abathur, throwing down these locust swarms, just these squadrons of choo-choo trains that just push forward, and they just keep this lane oh so very pushed back constantly. Falstad is in the back, channeling yet another tribute. They're lining up all of this damage, but the Hinterland Blast will pick up the kill on Diablo. Really nicely done. I believe that was, in fact, an overcharged Hinterland Blast. Overdrive. What is it called? Overcharge? Wrong! Alright, Overdrive, yes. We see that's the signal above his head, and he does hit the Water Elemental and Diablo. I mean, you're taking out a heroic and an enemy hero. Nicely done. Well worth it. Diablo did have soul, so he's back in action. And it's actually something to talk about. Diablo has died quite a bit. he's got the 60 soul count. Instead of 100 needed to resurrect, he only needs 60. So Diablo has like so much freedom to do that stuff. But Abathur, once again, down here in the bottom of the map, when he knows the enemy team is busy, he's there. Falstad is on the case. Flying down, he sees all these locusts. He's just going to clean this lane up. Now, a lot of Falstads would get really aggressive and try to find that Abathur. They would fly to the location in which they think the Abathur is in to try to pick up a kill. But he's actually really a respecting soldier. He's respecting the other Abathur player to say, this guy probably knows I'm going to fly on him, and he probably already hearthed, so I'd rather play it safe and just make sure that I can get in there and take out this lane before it deals too much damage to my wall, which has already lost all of its ammo. Smart, safe, conservative Falstad play. That's how you have to play this hero. Diablo taking a fair amount of damage. Judgment goes down. Lunar Flare does not connect, and that Lightning Breath is actually in a wonderful position that's just going to force them back. They're just going to throw a spare hammer out. Didn't need that anyways, and they're going to walk back the safe way towards that top keep. Caterpillar just abusing Aldruin's might, mobility, and Falstad, played by Trummel, flying up. They are once again in position before Tempest Storm because of the mobility of these two. And we got to talk about those timers. All the cooldowns are off. We see the hammer go out, completely dodged by our Jaina player, and the poly goes down onto Falstad, but Glaurung is quite low. Lunar Flare does not connect with the Hinterland Blast. Could it be lined up? He's going to get KO. Arthlon and Soldier hits all three of them, dealing massive damage. It did pick up one kill as a result, and it forces Arthlon back. That clone, the Abathur clone, evaporated, but he will just quickly resume his duties in this bottom lane with this massive push. Now, Tempest Storm has been cursed. Many more kills just happened. Who cares about this? These Locusts, they're a big story right now. We can see all of these choo-choo trains. They have to be dealt with once again, even though there's a curse on the side. In favor of Complexity, they have to react to this immediately because those Locusts will outrange the turrets in the current build. But the rest of the team is happy to scoop up a boss. The curse is pushing the middle lane, which is already starting to take some damage, but Abathur is everywhere helping defend. Whether it's Locust in the bottom of the map or just his symbiote here in the middle lane, he's making a huge difference in this game, helping defend these curses, helping push that bottom lane out. We got these hearts coming out across the board. Get that mana regen. So many mangoes. Such latte. I would say mango lattes, but it sounds disgusting. Alright, but we can see, again, Abathur has vision. He put these mines in locations that are a little less than, you know, what you would expect. A lot of Abathurs put the mines here. But this is just saying, hey, look, we know where you are. Right now, Complexity, though, they don't care. It doesn't matter. They have complete safety to push forward like this. They're going to get this boss, and they're going to get these bruisers, putting themselves in a great position. That top boss is just now being cleaned up by Tempest Storm. Their keep is fine, but they still had to respond to it, and now they have yet another boss to respond to. Abathur just puts a little nest here. This is going to be that level 20 talent. We're already at level 20, which is going to continuously spawn Locusts. So he's focused on that bottom lane. He wants to make sure to keep that lane pushed the best he can, but with a boss, it's going to be tough. But these Locusts are going to help quite a bit with this defense. But Complexity, they are pushing on in towards these bottom giants. Tempo got their bruisers right now, so they're safe in the middle lane for the moment. But Complexity, they just want to put that vice grip on. They want to get that stranglehold on the enemy team because they know that's how to win this game. Just keep the pressure on. They're winning the team fights, but experience is dead even. So even though structurally looks pretty good because of all these bosses, I mean, we're talking 4-0 in terms of boss count in favor of Complexity. They're utilizing that to push forward. They're winning most of the fights, but tempo is really just keeping up. Abathur constantly across the map. We can look again. He just says, hey, you're in the bottom. I'm going to go to the top part of the map, summon some trains, and just go on a choo-choo party. And we can actually just quickly look at Abathur's build. This is the current build for Abathur. He is getting changed to the next patch, so I retract that statement, and we're not even going to talk about it. Falstad flying up with the help of an eagle that will look for Abathur. And you know what? Let's highlight that. Let's highlight this situation. This is actually quite cool. Look at Tyrande. Tyrande doesn't have any way to know where Abathur is, except the fact where the train came out of. They were watching this top lane. They are well aware. We can actually go to the blue team's vision. So this is what they see on the map at this point in time. They see trains. They ping right here. This yellow ping is exactly what their vision is. And they're saying Abathur is in this spot. This is their response. Tyrande, Falstad. Falstad flies. Tiger JK shoots 2 owls. He uses rewind to shoot 2 owls, but Abathur had just hearthed away. He just got out of there, and that's just good play, honestly. The double owl might have been enough to kill him, but Falstad too, they committed quite a bit to handling it. They're going to push this wave back, but still, what did Abathur spend? He hearthed home. And now that this is all said and done, we go back to everyone's vision, and guess what? Abathur's back in the bottom part of the map, pushing that lane out once again. Falstad he's not committing too much to the hunt. He's still a threat, which is great for Complexity, but he's still focusing more on the tributes. They're just saying, let's just make sure we get the tributes. They have actually picked up 2 curses. They picked up 6 tributes to the 2 tributes of Tempo Storm, and they're in position for a 7th. They're dominating the tributes, they're dominating the team fights, and the bosses. 4 bosses to none. And you know what? They're going to channel this. Kettle's going to do that. Everyone's going to hearth home because they see that Tempo Storm is marching down the top lane, and they will just all be going back to base to push them back. Tempo just does a fair amount of damage, and they decide to leave at that point in time. Abathur continuing to push this bottom lane out. He's burrowing. Where is he going? Even further forward in the bottom to continue pushing out this lane. And Tempo Storm, well, they're rotating around. They're just kind of buying time. They're forcing the position as often as possible for Complexity to just really kind of dictate the map. As much as Complexity is dominating the objectives and dominating the mercenary camps, Tempo Storm is still kind of dictating the map with Abathur alone. I mean, that's just the power of this hero. I mean, again, they have to respond to this bottom lane where these locusts are just being completely and totally obnoxious. And look how conservative they're playing. They're almost hoping that Tempo Storm commits to a gank attempt on Trummel. They're all just waiting here. That's why you saw the entire team just kind of hanging out and not helping Falstad. They were really hoping that Tempo Storm would commit to something a little bit too aggressive, but not going to be the case. Tyrael sees the Locust, and he knows that Soldier could be around. Using Alduran's Might to move forward, he summons more Locusts, and Caterpillar knows that even with Judgment, it's not a guaranteed kill, and there could be members of Tempo Storm around the corner. So he opts to not commit, and that was actually the right call. Oh no, but as soon as he turns around, he gets blown up very quickly. We have the shield that went down, but too little too late. Hinterland's Blast will finish off that kill, and Falstad is actually dashing aggressively forward. They're just ignoring the tank in the backline who can't peel for the team, and they're just going specifically for those healers. In that situation where there was actually no peel and you can just walk away from Diablo, oh my goodness, that's a great situation because they have a squishy backline and they fell oh so very quickly. And this is going to set them up for a 5th boss, but while they're here, Abathur is across the map. This wall has been eliminated rather quickly. I mean, Abathur is non-stop on this job. Look at these trains. They just keep rolling on in. Falstad, though, once again, coming down. Going to show himself. Going to use that boomerang to very quickly get that burst damage down. And that is Abathur's cue to back up in his pajamas. He's going to use that... oh. Nope. He says, I'm going to stay. He decides to stay. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him for staying. But Complexity is continuing to dominate all of these mercenary camps across the map. Falstad going to use that global mobility to just fly across the map. Bird life. And yes, join his team. Potentially push this boss. But no, with that tribute, oh, that could be our 3rd curse in a row. That sounds nice. I'll do that. Yes. And here it is. Tempo Storm cannot do anything. They have to try to defend their keep. They will fail in doing so. The boss is just too much, boss after boss, and that is a 3rd curse in favor of Tempo. Complexity just continuing to stick to that strategy of grab all the tributes, grab all the bosses, grab all the bruisers, win the game. It's working out pretty well for them. They just got the first keep of the game. Things are looking good, but Abathur is doing his best to stop this, even with a curse against Tempo Storm. These guys in their current form outrange the keep, and look at how quickly it is falling. It is actually just futile defense. It falls almost immediately without the minions soaking up that damage, and they manage to pick that up. And in return, they take up a Brightwing. There's a Hinterland Blast lined up. Now KO actually manages to get out of the way of that one, but not so lucky for the Vala and the Diablo, as they took the brunt of that damage. Trummel in the backlight is quite low, and he has those 5 gathering power stacks in this game, so he doesn't want to die. That's a lot of additional ability power that he just can't afford to give up. 15% additional ability power, quite good. They will likely just push forward and take out this keep, be happy about it, and leave. The curse only 3 seconds longer. They can't get too aggressive here on the bottom keep, and now the curse has disappeared, and it's kind of normalizing into some pretty normal play. Trummel just going to back on up with the rest of his team, and they're going to go down to this bottom boss. Temple Storm has been sitting on these 2 tributes. This one more is all they need for curse almost the entire game, and that's got to be so frustrating. We're 25 minutes into the game at this point in time. And this is quite scary. So look at his cooldowns. 30 seconds on Hinterland Blast. He doesn't have that in this fight, but he still has the overdrive, and he just goes for it with his normal abilities, and they plow through Diablo like he's nothing. He still has those souls. It only takes him 60 souls to be able to respawn, so he's going to be back up really quickly, but this is so scary. But right now, let's freeze. Let's freeze everything. This is a situation in which it almost looks like they're just kind of throwing bodies in. Like, Glowering just kind of walked in and died. And it almost looks like the other players are just kind of walking in and dying. But during all of this, Soldier is in the bottom. He just summoned this wave of locusts. And remember how quickly that keep fell? It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool how fast it fell. And by cool, I mean scary. He's happy to continue doing that because that lane is already open. And that this wave of minions just evaporates. I mean, like it's nothing with catapults and the other guys. Now, Arthalon is going to sprint back, try to get to safety, doing his best to buy time. And Falstad flying forward. This fight just looks like a complete total mess. Caterpillar going to be taking a lot of damage, stays alive for the moment. Trouble is falling, and oh my goodness, the Emerald Wind is going to be forced out. So Falstad, though, this is his first death, I believe. If we look at 2, this is actually his first death of the game. He is at the top of the charts with 1 death, 38,000 damage. Fala, yeah, she's beating him out. But the fight is continuing forward. We have these 2 members of Complexity backing up. The Lost Vikings are melting, but look at the keep. Look at the keep. This is disgusting. It falls oh so very quickly. I lost my mind last night when this happened. So as good as Falstad's play was, as on point as just going across the map, picking up those tributes, hitting the perfect Hinterland Blast with 2 or 3 members getting evaporated in the process, it's not gonna be enough. Because this Soldier with the VM teleport in to wiggle at the core. Oh, what a fun game that was. That was actually one of the more fun games I've seen in quite a long time. And that, my friends, is a little bit about Spellcaster Falstad. Now, I realize that that second game turned into a lot of talk about Abathur just because it was really exciting and really important to that replay. But overall, I think we covered a lot about the positioning of Falstad. It's about being conservative. It's about being in the back lines and not being too risky. He always had those gathering power stacks, and he had a great composition that had a lot of appeal for him. Tyrande with the Lunar Flare, the stun from Uther, just ETC in general, or Tyrael, excuse me, in general, to appeal for him, and even give him that smite with the additional movement speed on the ground to help his mobility out a fair amount. He was constantly across the map. He flew into locations in which were quite safe for him, right? They weren't necessarily very risky locations. We never saw him fly onto a night camp. He would fly near a night camp in which he thought he would like to take. He didn't fly on it because he doesn't know what's there. If you don't have vision, don't put yourself in a spot that could be risky, because that's the best way to just the number of times I've flown into just a bush where it's like, I'm going to be great here, and I get greeted by a Nova or something. It's just awful. It feels terrible. So some really, really nice positioning, nice play by Trummel, and I really hope we see more Falstad play in the future. He's not super common at the moment, but the potential is certainly there, and I'd very much like to see you guys actually try out some of the other style builds. So I'm going to go ahead and say that if you go ahead and you play some auto attack Falstad, or if you play even the W's build Falstad, or even the crazy mobility Falstad with Mighty Gust, shoot me replays if you have a really epic game and you think it was like just really good showing for a specific style that we didn't look at today, and maybe we'll make a show around that, because honestly, I'm kind of in love with this man, with his bird. It's quite fun to watch. And that's pretty much going to do it for the daily quest today. Now, the daily quest will resume tomorrow and Friday. We got 2 more daily quests this week. Next week, though, I will be traveling to Burbank once again. I've been practically living in SoCal the last few weeks. I will be casting the WCA American Pro Qualifiers with the Kubi himself down at Burbank. And we've got the 8 best teams in North America competing in that event with $19,000 up for grabs. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys check that out. It's on twitch.tv/WCA_America, I think. Don't quote me on it. Thank you all for following the Twitch channel, guys. Make sure you follow the YouTube channel, and be sure to hit me up. Send me an email. Is this the right email? Do I have the graphic ready? Here, submit me your replays and request themed shows. If there's something you're struggling in understanding, if there's something that you would like to learn about the game that just doesn't make sense to you, or you want to know more about it, please send me a tweet or send me an email, whatever it is, requesting a theme for a daily quest, because that's what this is all about. It's supposed to be an educational series for newer players. And if you're advanced, well, there will definitely be episodes that are a little bit more high skill. But daily quest is still young. I'm still figuring it all out, still getting all the formatting worked out. Completely and totally would love feedback from you guys. It is much appreciated. This is where I throw up my bumper to end the show, but the stream will continue as I will be playing some games, potentially viewer games, in just a few.